All right. So now this is part of my camper awareness section here, but I'm going to take you on a little bit of a rabbit trail. In the processing and just thinking about all the different meltdowns I've dealt with kids, and especially out at camp, I want to talk a little bit about fear and shame, because shame is something all humans have experienced, and it's a lot of us have experienced maybe a visceral reaction to it. It is lethal to human flourishing, and the less you talk about it, the more you have it. And it's just, we all hide our shame and refuse to even look at it, but we're going to right now. The definition of shame is the painful feeling of humiliation or distress caused by the consciousness of wrong or foolish behavior. Our campers live in this reality. If you Google shame, you're going to find Brene Brown, who's a social researcher who's known as being the shame researcher. She defines shame as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. Something we've experienced, done, or failed to do makes us unworthy of connection. So shame tells us that we have to have defenses so that no one knows that I have weaknesses, that no one knows my shame. And Brene Brown calls this armoring up, where we put up a defense from being found out or hurt again. I'm never going to let you truly know me, because then you'll find out my shame. Armor can be good for resilience and survival in some spaces or seasons, but it will damage relationships and belonging in the long run. It'll damage growth if we always operate in protection mode. And at camp, we want to endorse courage, because the courageous will take off the armor and risk being known. Also part of her research, Brown talks about 3 critics that are always in the room. Our brains are really complex and really smart, and they know how to process information and finish predictable sentences. We fill in the blanks. We take information and decide A, B, therefore C. Our brains learn to take this in and translate communications and situations. Our brains interpret the nonverbal communications of a look, a turning away, a tone, anything to complete the narrative in our brain in line with our past experiences and beliefs. And so all of us have core beliefs about ourselves and judgments about others based on what life has taught us. Our beliefs are a way of making sense and meaning out of everything we have gone through. And no matter your upbringing, background, or faith, we all have good and bad beliefs and judgments that are or have affected our lives. Brene Brown says, when you enter the room, there's always 3 critics: comparison, scarcity, and shame. Comparison says that I can't do anything like other people do. I'm not as good as others. I'm not as strong, as smart, or put together. I'm not as good at this as anyone else, and I don't have anything to contribute. Scarcity says that there's never enough for me, I am never enough, and I won't have enough to survive. Shame says I am unworthy of belonging. If they really knew me, they'd know I'm not worthy of acceptance. Now, depending on your life circumstances, you might have other critics in the room as well, based on your beliefs and fears. So for me, when I walk into a room, I wonder if my personality reads as obnoxious. I grew up in a big family, so loud is my normal default mode. But then I would have other experiences as a kid that either made me feel really loud or weird, or later on in high school and stuff, I had experiences that just kind of instilled a fear that people don't really like me that much because of that. And well-intended friends, mean comments or jokes, or teachers' bad labeling of me, kind of unfortunately, vicariously, Satan used all of these things people had said about me to then make me feel an intense amount of shame, that I'm just too much and people don't want to play with Shayna. But I didn't realize that I actually believed it. I didn't realize I actually accepted that. I didn't realize that I adapted to not showing up as my organic self in places because of just this collection of people's labels and words. It all blew up eventually when I had a job in sales because they told me I could leverage my personality to be a salesperson, which obviously ended in massive failure. But I say all this to demonstrate how we can relate to our campers in having experienced shame or labels that then have changed how we interact. So I'm a visual person, and we're gonna just do a little imagination game here. Allow yourself to participate as much as you're willing. If you're comfortable with it, I'm gonna ask you to close your eyes because that's like the easiest, fastest way to activate your imagination. But we're gonna pretend a mental scene here, a scene of these critics. And I want you to put yourself in a posture for your creative brain and your narrative brain to just fill in the blanks as I talk. So imagine a room in your mind where your critics sit. And this is a room that you know well, and maybe it's one that's hard for you to show up in and be you and feel like you perform well. It could be work, it could be school related, it could be a social setting. What does the room look like where the critics hang out? An office, it could be a theater, it could be a formal residence or a really intimidating event center, it could be a sterile storage room, it could be a warehouse, a garage, a dilapidated barn. What is the critic's environment? Now imagine a group of chairs there for them all to sit in. And whatever chairs you want, but notice what kind of chairs they are. Are they formal and upright? Are they plastic? Are they metal? Are they high back leather? Like, what kind of chairs do you see? And how are they arranged? Is it messy or is it formal? Is it haphazard? Is it a large group? Are they in a group, a circle, a row? How many chairs do you see? And how many are full? And how many are empty? And now imagine you're walking into a new situation and it's a big deal moment. It's an audition, it's a new job, it's a big time doctoral defense. And you have to show up for something. You have to be there for something new and you're risking it. And you know you have this host of mental critics whose voices are going to get even louder as you try to show up. Or imagine you've messed up at work or at school and shame says you thought you could do this, but you're not qualified and now everyone knows it. Comparison says if the project had been on you, if the project hadn't been on you and had been on George over there, it would have worked and have been a success. But now you look like the failure of the year. Scarcity says you can't measure up. You should quit before they fire you. You won't be able to survive here. And these critics are always talking. Maybe that's not your thought process, and if that's not your normal, wonderful. I hope you never live like that. But imagine our campers. They don't have a solid foundation or regulation skills or backup resources when something bad happens. They've had a lot of negative experiences, and these have prepared their minds for despair over hope. They've lived with the lies unchecked by present and caring parents. And even if you have had amazing parents, a lot of people live with internal lies at some point. Even some of these kids have heard the mental lies voiced out loud by people that should have been their support. Now, I'm gonna guess most of you at this point have seen Inside Out. which does a great job of showing how basic human emotions can be visualized at play in people. And our campers, I think, is a really good representation of how fear and anger are probably always at the dashboard. Because fear and anger are what keep you alive when the amygdala is triggered. And imagining these critics, imagining like fear and anger in control of your camper, I want to challenge you in tough moments with kids. Knowing all of this, can your first question be, how do I disarm fear and shame? How do I clear the room of critics? Because how would you feel if you showed up and the room was empty of all the haters? What if you showed up in that space for you and it was empty? If fear of punishment, rejection, or powerlessness are in the room and that child feels they need to defend themselves, I can envision it as them armoring up like an Autobot, ready for battle. Even before the correction comes, they'll start to self-protect, and they'll begin throwing beads and coloring all over the activities area. We just wanted them to go visit the nurse, but now it's a tantrum, and all of that tiny craft supplies are going to be used as confetti. How can we disarm fear from having any power in the story? What shame is speaking, causing them to withdraw so that no one finds out they're unworthy. Now, you can't actually know what is inside someone else's head. We can't know the real cause behind everyone's behaviors. We just know that the behavior is communicating something. But can my focus always be what powerlessness, what abandonment, what terror, what hopelessness, what fear is talking? And hopefully with the Holy Spirit, we can see beyond the self-protection mode and have the right compassion to actually help this child. Now, please hear me. At RFK, we are set up for a critic-free zone. We organize on purpose to be camper-focused, to have non-competitive activities, to be process over product focused, to have boundaries and family modeling and appropriate rules, all to clear rooms with felt safety. These kids get off the bus unsure of what they're going into, but we've set the atmosphere, and we have an atmosphere of welcome where we're waving their name sign, and we have cleared the room. So I get to declare RFK is a critic-free zone. RFK is designed for each of them to have wins and choices. Camp is designed for grandparents, aunts, uncles, and youth staff and counselors to all belong and serve together for these kids. So shame is evacuated long before they arrive. And I say, it can't come to camp. It cannot enter an RFK space. We don't do competitions or winners, so comparison isn't in the room. We have enough supplies for everyone, so scarcity isn't in the room. Attention is lavished, and we use our positive words and encouragement to show them that criticism isn't in the room. We share the gift of ourselves with our authenticity and humanity, so shame can't say, "You don't belong here." If we can demonstrate all of this just by being there, then maybe the campers can feel safe enough for the courageous risk of trusting us. Shame is a lie, and it does not get to have a voice at camp. Shame is destroyed by being voiced and being met with empathy. So we set the tone for camp, and we all contribute to keeping the space clear of the critics. Now let's go back to that room where we were envisioning the critics. Go back to that imagination moment, and let's imagine you're a camper coming into camp, and there are the chairs with shame, comparison, scarcity, and you blink. And the chairs are empty. Suddenly it just kind of feels vacant, and maybe it's okay, but it's kind of weird. And you usually walk into that room and it's bombarding you with information and conflict and fears, and right now you just don't feel anything. You blink again, and Jesus is sitting there. But you don't recognize him. He just looks like the best human ever. Like he's ready to run or walk with you. And something starts to kind of settle in your guts and in your bones even. Like maybe you're feeling your body settled for the first time. You feel a little grounded for the first time, and your heart has never felt so puffy and squishy. Maybe it's squishy. You feel like smiling at nothing. And you blink again. And there's this perfect grandpa sitting in the chair next to Jesus. And there's another man there, and I'm just gonna call him the man in white. And they're gazing at you, and they're smiling. They're not asking anything. They're not moving. They're just there, seeing you as you really are. You blink again. And now your counselor's there. And they have your name on a sign. And they say hello, and that they're glad to see you. You check again, and the critics are still gone. The room has been cleared, but for these three men and your counselor. And the space is different than any you've ever experienced. It feels like there's room for you. Now, I went to art school, and it basically taught you the rules of art so that you could break the rules of art, but also talk critically about art. And we would have art critiques where you would look at classmates' work and find things that were good and bad about it and try to say something constructive. And few were ever really good at it. I saw a lot of bad art by classmates, and I'm sure mine wasn't that great either. But like, in the end, if you call it art, it's art, whether others agree or not. And in art critique, though, you have to participate, or you get graded on your class participation. And so everyone would be trying to throw out really smart sounding things to try and impress the professor and sound good to your classmates and your peers, and try to be the intellectually sounding critic in the room. But it was not always that good. It was 98% of what my classmates said about my work was really bad, and few could give solid feedback. So as humans, we're always kind of sifting through the feedback or the input from the world and from people's words. But then the professor would talk. And the professor had been looking at dumb art for decades. And they've seen it all. And yes, some professors really endorse if they think, it's controversial or pushes the boundaries. And, this is really innovative. They love that stuff. But at the same time, they know how to look at a canvas or a print or a sculpture and see where a strength hid or a weakness lie. And then communicate it so as not to hurt the student, but to propel them forward. Why am I talking about art? We get to speak a better word over our campers. We get to reframe the masterpiece that is their life like a professor, not a critic. And our campers live in rooms of fear and shame, and that's their whole world of hiding me and living in fear so no one knows, and I trust no one. They are their worst critics, repeating the lies in their head from where they've been and what they've experienced. And when I think back on all the meltdowns at camp, it's usually fear-based. It's usually shame. It's usually the critic that said armor up. They felt shame rise and fear rise, and they had to self-protect. Deep down, they feared punishment from being unworthy of love. And so my question for you in preparing for camp is, how do we disarm fear and speak like a professor, not a critic? We set the tone for camp. We decide the atmosphere with our positive mental attitudes and every single interaction we have out at camp. We recognize where these kids are coming from, but now they're on our turf. And so we have to show the kids, along with that felt safety, that the room has been fumigated of all the nasty stuff, and we're only going to speak out good things to propel them forward in their future. And I have a theory that there's more creativity in all of humanity. Even if it's not singing or drawing or whatever, it might be engineering, it might be spreadsheets, it might be in something very, very specific in your world. But we all have the DNA for the creative by our Creator God. It just looks different in every different person. And I think we'd be more creative and do more than is fathomable if we had more people out there saying, I've cleared the room for you, and I'll cover you what you risk. Like, imagine if you had people in your corner saying, I will help you clean up the mess if the rocket doesn't make it into space. I will be here for you if the prayer goes unanswered. I will be here to help emotionally clean up if this doesn't work out. Even if it's really ugly when you're done, I'm here for you. You have permission to fail and still be loved. And we can do that for our campers. We can show them the room is evacuated of all the junk, and it's clear for them to be themselves. So be their solid ground for the courageous risk. They might find out that they love soccer because you took time to teach them the rules. They might find out that they just adore fashion because you spent all that time in the dress-up room with them. They might find out that they love swimming and boating now, and they're just gonna forever be an aquatic human. They love art, and they're going to do it now because you really took the time to show them that. Because the room was clear and you encouraged them. So, the questions I want you to ask are, how can I disarm fear? How can I disarm shame? And then ask them what they want to do. Because if the room is clear, they're going to get to do whatever makes their heart burn. Whatever makes them come alive. At the end of the day, our campers are kids who need love, kids who need to play, kids who need a friend, kids who really just want to belong, just to be safe and to be seen. Our campers are coming to us with a trust deficit, and we need to be safe and a good environment full of people beyond reproach in motives and endeavors. I'm excited to see you all at camp, thinking about how you can disarm fear and shame.